If you've been frustrated with the Instagram algorithm and how your posts are getting, or your reels or whatever it is that you're posting on Instagram is getting pushed out into the feed, and how maybe you feel like the algorithm is working against you, well, I have a great episode for you today that is going to show you how to think differently about your business and to not rely so much on social media platforms like Instagram. Hey there, I'm Tracy Matthews. I'm the Chief Visionary Officer of Flourish and Thrive Academy, and I support and help jewelry designers, makers, and business owners launch, grow, and scale successful 5, 6, and 7-figure jewelry businesses using my methodology called the Desired Brand Effect. Today on the show, I have a graduate of our programs, Alexandra Camacho of Acid Queen Jewelry, who is here to talk a little bit more about how she is navigating the changes in the Instagram algorithm and how she's built a very successful multiple 6-figure business by pivoting and always iterating to find out what is working for her. So let's dive into the show today. I'm so excited to have Alex Camacho here on the podcast again. I feel like you've been on this show so many times, Alex. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I always love doing it. It's just a different experience than from what I normally do. So I'm happy to be here and happy to help any way I can.
So I asked Alex to come on the show because you probably heard about me talk about her, because I talk about her in our masterclasses. I talk about her on the podcast all the time for a very specific reason. I think she is like a role model for what success looks like as a business owner. And I'm going to frame what I mean by that, but she is someone who is always thinking ahead of what's next when whatever used to work to grow her business doesn't work anymore. And so, Alex, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first, but I want to give you like my backstory on why this conversation's really important today. Alex reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, maybe at this point, and she's like, I don't know if you saw this. I think it was like maybe a weekend. I can't remember, but I don't know if you saw this, but there's this viral video going around about someone I know who is basically telling everyone that she's shutting her business down because the Instagram algorithms aren't showing her posts anymore. And because you know this person, you reached out to her and were asking some curious questions. That led into a whole spiral of things that I'm going to let you explain. And then you posting a video that went viral that about basically the opposite idea. So I don't want to put any words in your mouth. I'm going to ask you about that first. But I think this is a really important conversation because a lot is changing in the world right now. We aren't in a strong economy. Some people are still doing really well in their business. Economies are cyclical, so this isn't like an unexpected thing. But at the end of the day, the platforms that we rely on to market, if we don't own our contacts information on those platforms, we're basically holding ourselves to the mercy of those platforms to grow our businesses. And so we're just going to have an organic conversation about that today and see where it goes. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, awesome. So Alex, before I dive in, I'm going to ask you some questions. Why don't you give all of our listeners just a quick background of your business and how you got into the industry and all the things?
Yeah, so my name is Alex Camacho, or Alexandra Camacho, however you want to call me. I run a business called Acid Queen Jewelry that I started actually in 2010. It started like in a very different way than what I'm doing now. And it's just been a long form journey and of building this business and building something that is meaningful to me. I create jewelry that inspires and empowers. That's, really, inspired by mysticism and magic and female empowerment. And my goal in life is to create things that bring beauty and magic to people's lives, but also inspire people to be at their highest selves and whatever that means to them.
I love that, which is awesome. Let's go back to you you reaching out to me about that Instagram viral video. Why don't you share your perspective of like what was going on? We're not going to name any names or show the video and stuff like that. So let's just talk a little bit about what you saw from this person that you knew on Instagram.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I have been on Instagram for 11 years. I started my account in 2012. So I have been there in so many different iterations of what it means to be on there and to run a business there. And so I'm always paying attention to what other people are doing. And I want to see like if someone's doing better than I am, like how is it different? What are they doing better? Like
Yeah.
what can I change? And so I saw this video that somebody in my community online posted, and it was basically just talking about how they were about to shut down their business because they weren't able to get sales anymore because the Instagram algorithm wasn't really showing their posts anymore. And I watched this video and I watched like, I mean, honestly, I think at this point it had 612,000 views. Like
Wow.
mine got almost like 25,000 views. So like, and this is the thing is like the algorithm is really focused on people having outrage. And that upsets me because I want people to be happy,
Yeah,
and positive.
exactly.
So it's like, it's really frustrating to see things like that. But then when I'm seeing what this person was going through and seeing the success that they had through this post, I reached out to ask like what this experience was like and how they were harnessing the views that they were getting and like the traction they were getting. And to my surprise, this person didn't even have an email list. And I told them, I said, you have to like, yes, your posts went viral, but like, what are you going to do with this that is going to be a long lasting, sustainable action for your business and for yourself in the long term? Because just going viral, like, and even thinking about what does going viral mean? Like someone can go viral and they could be in front of everybody's faces, just like having a number one hit, but then they just go into nothingness and just never
Mhm.
exist again, and people are like, oh yeah, I remember that one thing, but like there's no sustainability that comes along with that. So it just made me think about things. And then I saw another video being posted and other makers making videos and getting all this traction, but I was like, but why are we fueling and feeding this negativity instead of putting that energy into positive actions that can be meaningful to us for the long term, especially as business owners? And listen, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I learned from you guys too. And this is why I had this mindset. But I just wanted to, it was making me angry, honestly, because I like don't want to complain, even though I wanted to make 100 videos on Instagram about how the algorithm hates me. I think, like it's just what does that bring to the table besides bringing negative energy my way? Like instead, I would rather take a deep breath and internalize that and like think about what that means and then focus that energy into a positive action. So I then decided to make a video that was like, listen, my business is still existing regardless of the fact that I have not had good engagement for like the last 3 to 4 years. And it has been a huge struggle. It has affected my mental health. It has affected my anxiety. It has affected like my self-worth. And yeah, like those times, there's days and there's times where I want to cry and I want to get upset about it. And I let myself do that for a minute. But then I look at all the things that I built, that I was inspired to build, that I was taught to build, that allow me to keep on going. And that is part of like why it's important to diversify your business and to diversify your business practices, because therefore, when you have one thing that stops working, you can start putting that energy into another thing and keep on going to find out what is going to be the next step for you. Just like people however many years ago were doing wholesale and trade shows all the time. And then
Mhm.
it went to e-com, and all those people had to learn all these new things and
Mhm.
and train themselves and learn how to build a website and how to do customer service and all of these things that they never had done before. But it was that transition. And right now we're just going through another transition. And so it's about being able to get yourself out of that slump and realize that you have so much more power. And once you take things into your own control and you're able to manage that the way that you need to, you can move forward and you can be successful regardless of if something stops working.
Yeah, I'm taking some notes because you said a couple of things in there. Because I mean, you told me the whole conversation between you and this person, but one of the things I found really fascinating in what you just said, and I want to come back to a couple of things that you just said, is you asked her, do you have an email list or do you have any other way to reach out to these people? And she still said no. And I remember you saying something to me, and when I asked her about it, about doing it now, she was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get around to it someday. It's like you're basically setting
Yeah.
yourself up for the same problem again. Maybe, I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, And listen, you know what I saw last week is her make a post about her email list and about all the different things on the back end that she's going to be doing with like offering different types of
Mhm.
content for her followers. And that makes me so happy because I'm like, listen, you are taking control of your business. So
Yep.
it's like, I think there's so many people, and I was one of those people who came up on Instagram in a time where it was really easy to build a following. It was engagement. Like there was no algorithm at one point.
Yeah.
And even once they introduced the algorithm, it wasn't what it is today with the age of influencers, which causes like a whole other thing because like jewelry designers are not content creators, like,
Mhm.
so it's like
Exactly.
it creates it, yeah, it makes an even bigger disconnect. So I think that now that I've been seeing like people inspired by what I had to say and really taking the control into the like of their business into themselves and taking it upon themselves to take control is really like all I really wanted to inspire, and seeing that makes me happy. She has an email list. She is taking it offline onto another online thing, and she's going to be able to reach those people continuously, regardless of whether Instagram decides to show her posts or not.
Which is great because this is really, you said something too about like taking your power back, and this is how you take your power back. The thing that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand, someone reached out to me who was really successful back in the day. She sold her company like in 2017. She's very successful in the wholesale market. She sold to all the big stores and she wants to launch this new jewelry line, but she doesn't understand how social media works and all these things and how digital marketing works. And they want to do a direct to consumer line where they're selling direct to consumer. And I found it really interesting on that conversation because she has no idea how to digitally market things. And she's like, well, I just need to know how Instagram works. And I was like, and every time I tried to chime in and say something along the lines of like, well, that's not really the full picture. It's like I was getting cut off left and right. I'm like, okay, not a right fit. We're not going to work together. But at the end of the day, like it's fascinating to me that even with all the knowledge out there, even with me coming here every single week talking about marketing, talking about email marketing, SMS marketing, advertising, like all the things that we talk about, people still rely on a social media platform and they expect that to be their sales channel, which
Mm.
it's just one part of a very robust marketing strategy. If you want to be successful online, you have to be exploring these new channels. And I think that's something, or these other avenues, I should say. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that you've done really well. And the reason why I just want to drive this home, and then I'd love to hear what you think about it, is that you don't own your followers. At any given, I had a friend who posted a picture. It was like an art installation in a hotel once, and it was a bunch of chairs stacked up like above like what appeared to be a burning fire, but it wasn't real. It was like an art installation. Well, the Instagram
Yeah.
algorithm actually shut down her account because they thought it was against like maybe their terms of service of like abusing other people's property or something like that. We don't really know what happened. Wasn't a business owner, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but she's like, I have no idea why they shut me down. And then I would see over and over again the Jewels had her account shut down. Many other people like jewelry brands are like, I don't know why, but my account is shut down. And then they're like begging Instagram to let it come back. Because if they're like, oh, well, I guess I have to go back and rebuild my 20,000 followers that I spent 10 years building. And it's not as easy to build a following anymore unless you're
No.
spending a lot of money in ads. Like it's just not.
Or if you are going to be a full-time content creator. And this is what I tell people all the time. I'm like, you can 100% build a following on Instagram and you can 100% get a good engagement, but it requires so much energy and so much time. And yes, the thing is, it's like you don't control it. They can take away your account at any given time. And so that's why it's so important to then make sure that that you have diversification in other channels, but also other ways of communicating with them, and that you get them on the email list, and that you're providing valuable content in the form that of your email list that you can reuse in your Instagram. Like
Yeah.
you can reuse all of this content. You've talked about that too. But if you first focus on your email list and you treat those people like they're gold, they're going to stay there with you forever. And it doesn't matter if they follow you on Instagram or not. They might be on Instagram or not on Instagram because it affects their mental health,
Yeah.
So It's a thing where, yeah, it's a great storefront to have in a digital marketplace. It's a great place to have like a visual representation of your brand so that it's like a calling card you can give someone and be like, hey, follow me on Instagram, like look at my stuff. But at the end of the day, it's what you do after that that is the most important aspect of all of this stuff, you know?
So you talked about mental health, and I don't think that this is a coincidence. Like I was cleaning out my closet a couple of days ago, and I found a handbag that I haven't used in like I don't know, maybe 6 months or so to a year. And I found a bunch of like lipstick in there and a book by my friend Susie Moore that says "Stop checking your likes." That was one of her first books.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about mental health because it can be a total like, excuse my language here, but a mind fuck to be
Oh, yes.
feeling like, shoot, no one wants to look at my stuff anymore because maybe you used to get 400 to 1,000 likes on a post or a reel, and now you're getting 37. And you're
Mhm.
like, what the heck is wrong? I think this is why a lot of people are starting to hide their likes now. I mean,
Oh,
we've seen,
I've hid my likes forever.
yeah,
As long as I could because I can't even look at them. I don't want to look at them because it makes me feel crazy, you know?
yeah.
But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, but this is another thing. It's like your self-worth is and your value as an artist and a designer and the success that you have isn't necessarily correlated with the with your social media. This is something that I'm glad that I understood a long time ago because it drove me crazy that people put so much value on how many followers you had to like how successful you are as an entrepreneur or a business owner or a jewelry brand. Because really, like Instagram is just like a front facing thing. I know a lot of people who have hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers who are like influencers who can barely rub two nickels together because they don't know how to monetize what they're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about is knowing what to do after that. And
Yeah.
like, and when I was talking to that, the person who had all of the viral video and everything, like I was trying to also like really understand like what does going viral even mean for a
Yeah.
business? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does it do for somebody? Because it's just you see all these things happen, and it's just like, you know, and I was actually talking to them, and after the fact, yes, they got a lot of sales and they got they I think they gained like 10,000 more followers almost. Um, but they also got death threats and they had people asking them for nudes and they got people saying terrible things to them. And, you know, I'm sorry, but like, no matter how, like, no matter how many sales that it brings in, opening my energy up to having someone giving me death threats or having like a crazy political discussion on my comment thread or like all of that, that's just wasted time, you know, it's wasted time and it's wasted energy. So it's like, do I even want to go viral? Do I even want that to happen? And what does it mean if you have a big following? And so I think that it's like, yes, it's a great place to start. And if you have a great following, you have engagement, I think that is amazing for you. But if you don't have the tools to back it up, no matter what, just like that influencer, you know, you're not going to be able to monetize that or make money from it. So, you know, it's just like if you don't have the infrastructure to run a good business or to capture that information or to make those people long-term customers, then none of it even matters. You know, like it's just,
Mhm.
it's going to go into the ether and become nothing. And it's just more crap for you to have to deal with in the interim, you know? So I think that and so what I was talking about in my video, taking it back, and I had, you know, making a video on Reels is really annoying because you only have a minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You have a minute and 30 seconds to express like this big thought or whatever it is that you have. And so I had to like re-record it a bunch of times and I was talking super fast, but like my main point was that yes, stop putting all of your faith in Instagram because it is not the only way, it's just one part. And taking our power back is what I said at the end of it. It's like you have to take your power back. And what I mean by that is like, look to yourself. I remember a conversation we had a really long time ago when we were talking about my business. And it's about finding what's right for you. Not everybody is going
Mhm.
to run their business the same way, and not everybody's going to vibe with running their business in the same way. Some people are really good at content creation. Other people are really good at like emails. Other people are really good at Pinterest. Other people,
Yep.
some people, everybody has a special power that and like that speaks to the person that they are. And you have to run your business for the person that you are, and not trying to follow and compare to everybody else, you know? And that's like what I'm talking about with taking back your power. It's like, maybe that doesn't mean having like the most robust email list, but maybe that means having an amazing blog, or maybe that means having a Patreon, you know, maybe
Yeah.
that it means so many different things. And there's so many options that we have now in this digital space, in this digital market that we live within. But also, maybe you're not even a digital person. Maybe you actually do well doing shows every single weekend, and that's what brings you joy. And if that's what brings you joy and that's what makes you money, then it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if someone has a million likes on Instagram, because you're being fulfilled in the way that you need to be, and you're still like hitting your bottom lines and your goals, and it's aligned with you and who you are, you know?
Exactly. Everything. Like, I'm like, yes, 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 all the things. It is important. And also, I think that there is a lot of power that you can give back, that you can hold on to for yourself if you get really clear on what those things are. And I think a lot of people do
Hmm.
things in their business because they think they should. You know, we have a
Hmm.
program that I know you've been through because you were in Momentum for a while, called
Yes.
Train Your Customers to Buy From You Online. And what I'm always thinking is, and a lot of the reason why that program does so well in particular, is that a lot of people come who are doing in-person shows, who want to be able to sell more after the shows or in between the shows, so that they aren't so reliant on a show. So that's kind of like
Hmm.
how this program even came about. But what I will tell you is that every single strategy in there is not something that every single jewelry business owner is going to use. It's about catering
Hmm.
the strategies that actually are going to work for your business. And you don't have to do
Exactly.
everything, you just have to do a couple of things really well. So,
Yeah. And oh, sorry. No, I was going to say, I remember I took, when I was still in Momentum, I think it was like the first version of Train Your
yeah.
Customer that you guys did.
Mhm.
And I was in that. And I remember I couldn't, like, I had to do it, like, take the video after. I couldn't do it live. And, you know, I'm like kind of like a non group member participator. Like, I like to work on my own. But I remember like all the different things you guys were talking about. And that's when it really sunk into me. Like, I don't have to do everything. I can do the things that really speak to me. And I think that, like, that allows a certain type of freedom that
Mhm.
maybe some people don't have, because they go into a program like that, or they go into learning and starting their business thinking like, if I don't do this, I'm not successful. If I don't do this, I won't be successful. And it's like, no, you actually, and I remember what I was going to say is, we did a goal setting thing,
Mhm.
and it was kind of like just separating goals and kind of breaking them down and talking about, and maybe this was like in combination with like a 90-day planner
Mhm.
situation. But it really, when you start to break it down and you start to realize the things that speak to you as a person and as a business owner, you can then lean into the things that will make your business successful, you know?
Yep, 100%. And this is so true, because I think everyone has a different way about them. Some people are never going to stop doing in-person shows, but embrace that and then leverage the
Hmm.
online methodologies that you can use that are actually working for you. And
Right.
if there's something that you want to work for you and you've been trying for it a while, like, get some feedback on it, because you're probably not
Hmm.
seeing something that other people, that someone who's an expert in it can see. And I think this is especially true when it comes to email marketing, because some people are so successful at it. And some people, they're like, I never get sales from my emails, and they don't know why. And I have a lot, I mean, I've looked at a lot of emails because of what I do over here. But what I will say is, like, it's just like the 5% that's not getting it over the edge. Maybe there's too much copy in the email. Maybe there's not enough a strong enough call to action. Maybe there's too many calls to action. There's so many reasons why an email might not convert. It also might be that your email list isn't big enough. You don't have the right people on your email list. Like, there's so many reasons. But with that being said, is another part of this is really testing and tweaking. So, in figuring out,
Hmm.
like, in the process of what works for you. So I wanted to ask you, what have you found that is working really well, or has worked historically well for you, in addition to Instagram, to helping you build your online audience?
Absolutely. And this plays into my idea, what I was saying earlier about diversification.
Hmm.
So I have multiple revenue streams that I can tap into at any given point. So like, there's wholesale, which is not my biggest thing. My biggest thing is direct to consumer sales online. But then I also have my customs clients and I have a wait list for my customs. So if this isn't selling, then I can lean into that. Or
Hmm.
I have different ways of like putting my stuff out there like Pinterest or TikTok. And like we're always trying new things. And I think that a lot of the time people get stuck in this thing of trying to be perfect,
Hmm.
wanting things to be perfect before they put them out into the universe. And at the end of the day, like no one cares that much as much as you
Yeah.
do. And no one is going to notice and no one's ever going to say anything. Like I've been posting reels every single day for like 2 weeks now of just random stuff just to see if it helps or it changes or whatever.
Hmm.
We're tweaking and testing things every single day with my assistant just to see like what happens, what happens when we do this, what happens when we do that.
Yeah.
So the number one thing for me, as far as what works for my business or what has worked for my business historically, is diversifying myself and making sure that I have multiple revenue streams that I can tap into at any given time. And what that looks like for other businesses is different because my business is very specific. And I had been doing, I have made to order items that I sell online, and I have one of a kind collections that I do now twice a month, and I've changed that so many times throughout the years, just tweaking and testing what works for my customers. Do you guys like 2 updates? Is it 30 pieces? Is it 40 pieces? Is it this kind
Yeah.
of pieces? Like everything I do, I'm constantly changing and testing because I'm trying to make it better. Everything I do, I try to make better. So I think definitely, like you said, testing, tweaking, no matter what you're doing in your business, is going to get you to the next step, and always trying to figure out the best ways. But like for instance, I've been doing Facebook and Instagram advertising for since before the pandemic, but been working with a digital marketing company since basically a week after or a week before we went into lockdown. Like it was
Hmm.
like we started working together and then it was lockdown and it was crazy. And all of those ads have been doing really well up until actually just very recently. And so now we're in a point where like I've increased budgets, but I'm not getting the same type of
Hmm.
feedback or the same type of sales because conversion rates are lower. And so now we're diving deep into looking at different types of analytics on my website and like looking at customer behavior so that we can make tweaks to make that better. But I have a Pinterest strategy, and I've worked with Andrea. I was like, what can think of
Andrea
her name?
Lee, who's one of
Andrea
our
from,
trainers.
yeah,
Yeah.
Andrea Lee. Yeah, it's from Red Pin Geek. And I talk, I follow all of her emails and I look at all of her stuff. And I think that it's really awesome. I've also worked doing PR. I also, every time there's an opportunity like to be on a podcast or to have an article written about me, I lean into that. I put myself out there. And also exceptional customer service is
Hmm.
number one, the thing that you can do to keep your clients
Yep.
coming back to you and to keep your customer retention rates higher. That's the number one. If you look at my reviews on my website, like most people say, like I have insane customer service. Not only do I have a background in it, but it's just me as a person. My nature is to always be giving and to be open and helpful to people. So I lean into my strengths in my business, and then everything else I outsource. Like I'm not great at like looking at analytics and ads, so I have a digital marketing team that does that for me. Or like I don't want to spend the time that I have to do on making like really beautiful stories, so I have my assistant do that in Canva for me. I don't like doing my sales tax, so I have my husband who was really good at numbers, doing all the accounting kind of things. So I think that, and I get to do the things that really matter to me, and because of that, I'm able to really thrive in the way that I need to show up for my business. So I think that, historically, not one thing has always worked. Sometimes wholesale has been crazy, and sometimes I don't get a wholesale order for 6 months. Sometimes my B2C or my direct to consumer business is doing great, and my made to order stuff is selling like hotcakes, and other times it's not, and I lean into other things. So I think that historically the thing that has been best for my business is really just being open-minded to change and being
Hmm.
fluid in the way that I run my business and tweaking things and monitoring things and not being held onto one style of a way that I have to run my business, but instead being open to the flow and change of like the universe and
Yep.
myself. and really be open to what's being presented to me at that time. Because like, yeah, sales right now are hard. It is harder than ever to sell jewelry, compared to how it was when I first started my online business. I was like, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
I never thought that I could get to like, I remember I was selling like $50,000 or $60,000 a year, which for like, and that was a few years into my business. It was still my side hustle. And I had hired a consultant. This is before I found you guys. And she's like, you could make easily like $100,000 a year. And I'm like, no, I'm like, that is ridiculous. And now I've far surpassed that. But with that, I've grown and changed. And so now it's like, yeah, it's harder to make money in the way that I was, but let's lean into the other thing. So I have all these different projects that I'm working on and ways that I'm putting myself out there and seedlings that I'm putting into the ground. And it's just about keeping on going and like taking that deep breath, like letting yourself feel defeated, but like knowing that you can do it and keep on trying to try. That's the
Yeah.
number one thing you can do is you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
you know
How do you deal with those days when you're just feeling like defeated and down? Like, what are some of the things that you do to like pick yourself back up and get back into a positive space?
Sometimes I message you freaking out. No, no, no. I
That is
honestly
true,
like
but
I
like,
let no, it is true. It is true. But or I'll reach out to other people who I know who like I admire or I see something that's working for them. I ask them. I talk. That's how I built a really fantastic community on Instagram. That's part of the reason why I'm still there. Is like I have all these makers that like I'm like, oh, okay, so like, is this working for you? What about this? Like, can I try this or whatever? But honestly, I let myself sit in that. I let myself be upset for a minute because it is a lot of work to run a business. It's a lot of pressure that we put ourselves under. It's a lot of stress. And if you don't allow yourself, if you're like, I always have to be perfect, like me, it becomes too much sometimes. And if you are not living in your highest self, you cannot be putting out the highest level of whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I take a deep breath and I go outside and I take a walk, a like long, like hour-long walk. And with my dogs and my husband, and we just talk. And I just like sit on the ground and I touch rocks and I put my hands in the dirt and I like ground myself and I take a deep breath. And I like, if I need a day, like I let that happen because we need to have forgiveness and grace in our hearts for ourselves just as much as we do for others. But then I think of, and this goes back to something that I learned from you too, revenue generating activities. I think of three things that I can do that will bring me income right now. If it's something that has to do with like a sales thing or whatever, or I think of three things that I can do that's going to change my situation. So whether that is sending a new email or whether that's reaching out to clients that like had asked me about something previous and I'm like, or I know there's a holiday coming up and I'm like, oh, I know that this person likes gold. So I'm going to like say, hey, I'll give you like a locals 15% off discount if you want this piece. Like I just try to put everything out in the universe that I can, and at least three things. And sometimes I'm just overwhelmed in general. So I'll go and clean my studio and I clean three things in my studio. And like within that action, I'm letting my mind kind of calm down and I'm giving myself an activity to like breathe through it. And then I find something that inspires me and then I, go on my way. So I think it's just like like forgive yourself and have grace and like understand that like we all go through this, but then also jump into action and try to think of just three things that you can do that will get yourself to the next, like out of that space and to the next place that you need to be.
that's such good advice. We all need to take that advice that I originally gave you that you're giving to everyone else too, because it's in your vortex of control, right? Like you can do three things, but doing like a million things can be overwhelming, right? So
Right.
anyway, this was such a good interview. And thank you, thank you, thank you so much for coming and just like sharing your perspective on this whole thing, because I know that this is going to be super helpful for a lot of people who are not feeling great about their business right now or need to do something different or are frustrated with Instagram and all those things. So where can everyone find you, Alex? If they want to reach out and say hi. Don't bombard her with questions about her business.
Well, everyone can find me at Acid Queen Jewelry. And honestly, I do get a lot of people who contact me from Flourish and Thrive and who have seen your videos, and I am always open and happy to answer those questions. I am working on a way to be able to offer information or my insight in a different way in the future. So please follow me at Acid Queen Jewelry anywhere, acidqueenjewelry.com. And I look forward to like meeting you guys and talking with you. And we're all in this together. I support you. You can do it. We can all do it. It's going to be fine.
We can do it. And once again, this too shall pass. This is just a space and time. You know, economies are cyclical and things go up and down. So this is a normal flow of business. And anyway, thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. This is Tracy Matthews signing off until next time. If you'd like more support and you'd like to learn a little bit more about my methodology, The Desired Brand Effect, pick up my book at desiredbrandeffect.com and let me help you stand out in a saturated market with a timeless jewelry brand. Thanks so much for watching the show today. This is Tracy Matthews signing off. Until next time.